Hello everybody, and welcome to a little bit of a special video where I wanted to do a bit of a trailer analysis for the most recent Guild Wars 2 expansion trailer that released 2 days ago by the time that I am uploading this video, for the Secrets of the Obscure expansion. And I haven't really seen anybody else do a trailer analysis yet. I know I used to be kind of popular back in the day, and there's only 1 minute of trailer for this trailer, and I think there is a decent amount of stuff to go over, so I'm just going to go ahead and play the trailer here, and then we can talk about it afterwards. And now that we are back, I'm just going to go through frame by frame basically. The audio for this trailer is pretty much just music that's kind of like lined up to what's happening in the trailers. There's no talking. The music might be a little bit important, but it's generally never important. But it is a pretty nice soundtrack, and I think it's a new soundtrack as well, as they tend to do for trailers. But starting off at the very start of the trailer here, we of course have a new rift mechanic that is being introduced into the game. We're basically, as the Astral Ward, or like helping out the Astral Ward, we are going to go around and hunt a bunch of rifts. And the rifts and basically the demons that are coming through the rifts are basically like the central point of this expansion. And then we see the background around us is pretty much going to be a new place that is up in the sky, like just under the atmosphere of Tyria. It's kind of like a new realm, but it's kind of like part of Tyria. It's like a little vague there, I think, but it's kind of like a representation of Tyria itself, really like messed up and weird, and there's like demons pouring into it now. Continuing on, we just have the rift showing here, and then we have this text. The cycle ends. Everyone knows the dragon cycle is over with the End of Dragons expansion, and anyone who has played through a little bit of story that was introduced in the most recent update 2 days ago, I won't spoil it, but they know that this is kind of just reinforcing that idea. And then we're moving on to new things. The new things here being another rift, and you can kind of see it's a little bit of like a Shuren architecture now, which is kind of like showing maybe like parts of like the Maguma jungle or regions where the Shura kind of inhabit. This outpost itself reminds me a lot of Radanovis compared to like a bunch of other different Assuran things we can look at. It just reminds me of that specific stronghold. But Ancient Fractures Deepen is a very interesting line of text here. And I did a little bit of extra research before watching this video, and then I just went and did a little bit extra right now, just browsing through the Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 wiki a little bit. And I don't think there's anything that's specifically that this line of text is specifically referencing, but I think it has to do more with what we are kind of seeing in the expansion, is that the Elder Dragon cycle is ending, and then this new stage or phase of like magic in the world. And the Mists is kind of like interacting with Tyria in a very new and interesting way. And I think that's what this like Fractures is kind of like connected to. And I think this might have something to do kind of with like the void, not necessarily the void itself, but that idea of the void. Or for whoever didn't watch my story video about the void, basically the void is what existed in like the space or the realm that we now know of as like Tyria, and then Suwon kind of like was able to filter the void and create life and all that stuff. And I think this is kind of connecting back to like the void's place in like the whole universe multiverse thing of Guild Wars 2 of Tyria, and like all the other like different god realms and all the other demonic realms that we know of. And this is kind of like the fractures between like Tyria and those realms that are definitely very, very ancient, because Tyria is at least like 20,000 years old, and probably many, many, many more years older than that, where this kind of like connection weird thing is happening. And now like the Elder Dragons are gone, that might bring way for like demons to really try to like come into Tyria and like take the magic for themselves. Maybe it might be a direction that we're going down. And then here we have another rift, and this is in New Kyning City, I believe. And I think this is kind of going to be a shot at the very start of the expansion, because in one of the blog posts, I believe they kind of said that the expansion would begin in Cantha with Gorik and stuff. And then I would assume that like a rift shows up, and then we're like, what's going on here? And then Gorik is like, well, the Wizard's Tower is missing. And then we go to the Wizard's Tower, and then we find a portal there that takes us up to, I forget the name of the new realm. And that's kind of how the expansion starts. But you kind of see like a real world example, I guess, now of the rifts in Tyria, where previously the two places that we saw the rifts at were up in the new realm. And here it's in, presumably, I believe this is actual Kyning City, but I guess this could be a like weird alternate version of Kyning City. And then the Tower falters, and this is kind of like the biggest like selling point of the story for the expansion, where we see right here there is Garenhof, and then we have Iskarin's Tower right there, which we now know is going to be playing a bigger role in the expansion, where the tower is going to be an outpost up in the new realm. And then here we have what I believe is a shot inside of the tower, which I think is kind of setting up that the Wizard's Tower and the Wizard's Court is really like a big like organization and a structure that is kind of designed around defending Tyria from all the different demonic realms that exist in the world. And this is a portal that is probably going to be the portal that we take to like the different zones in the expansion. And then lore wise, I would assume that this portal is going to be kind of like a portal that the Wizard's Court use in order to get to a bunch of different realms to fight back against like demons or whatever that are trying to invade Tyria, or maybe even trying to invade like other realms as well, similar to Tyria, like maybe where humans came from, or any number of different realms that have their own races and societies and stuff like that, that from like the perspective of like the good guys, we would see them as like the good guys, and then we view like the demons as like the bad guys. But here we kind of see like the portal is kind of like shifting a little bit, and then the entire Wizard's Tower gets teleported here, and then we see that basically Garenhof is destroyed, and I believe there's like a demonic invasion that is coming through here. And then right here is something really, really interesting that I haven't seen any other person talk about yet. And in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's super important, but from like someone who really likes the story of Guild Wars 2, I think this is kind of important, where we have the text right here, can you protect Tyria, comma, and then it shows champion. And we are referred to as champion a lot in the Guild Wars 2 story, especially recently with Oreen, where we are Oreen's champion, and then the Iceroot Saga really focused on that idea of champions. But I think it's really interesting here that they're putting a lot of emphasis on the title champion, where if you play it back here again, I'll just go back here, and then we can see the text shows up, and it shows, can you protect Tyria, without the champion part, and then it shows champion. And again, I don't think this is important, but I think it's really interesting, and maybe a very interesting like story direction that Guild Wars 2 is going down, where we are going to see like the main character, the character we play as, has been kind of alienating themselves from their pact commander role that they've had since 2012, and is really transitioning to like the champion of Oreen, and then to like a little bit of a greater or lesser extent, or whatever, however you want to phrase that, we are the champion of Tyria, where it's like prime protector against the demons moving forward in the story, and we're no longer kind of like associated with the pact, and we're no longer like maybe the, like just a 1 in 10 million, you know, or however many soldiers that are in the pact and all the different military organizations around Tyria. Now we are champion of Tyria, we're a champion of Oreen, and maybe the story is now putting more of an emphasis on us even more now that we are like the primary character of like Tyria and the world of Guild Wars 2. Or maybe they just decided to put champion here instead of commander or hero or whatever else. So just more shots of Garenhof, and I would assume that the expansion has us going to Garenhof pretty early on. And then one thing that I kind of really want to talk about with Garenhof as well is that we see it's destroyed, and I'm wondering what that impact is going to be on the game as a whole, where for anyone who's done the story, that's a little bit of a spoiler for the new story, where anyone who's done the story goes to Garenhof right now, the Wizard's Tower is not currently there. It's teleported. And for people who have not done the story yet, the Wizard's Tower is still there. And I'm wondering if Garenhof is going to be like phased for people who have started the expansion story or not, where people can still go to Garenhof and kind of explore it and see all the beautiful scenery and stuff, or if it's going to be lost for everyone and basically a brand new player coming into Guild Wars 2 who's just started the personal story will come to Garenhof and see all this like demonic stuff going on here, and it's like all destroyed and they can't really enjoy the scenery and like the old way, but they could still enjoy the new scenery here of like these broken buildings and whatnot. And I think that's like a really interesting like story direction stuff where we've seen with like Living Road and stuff, where in some ways they've tried to shy away from that, where like with the Tower of Nightmares we see in Living Road Season 1, you only see the Tower of Nightmares if you're doing that story mission, but then you see the Tower of Nightmares destroyed before and after the story mission, so it's kind of like weird, really confusing for like new players that are trying to engage with the story. And then there's also something to be said about losing like a piece of Guild Wars 2, where like there's all this fun dialogue and stuff going on in Garenhof talking about the Wizard's Tower. Is that just going to be lost for everybody now because this is going to be a location that kind of just no longer exists, or no longer exists in like the same capacity that it used to? And then here we have something really, really cool, and it is like the main logo for the Guild Wars 2 expansion, Secrets of the Obscure. And I'm sure you've noticed that this logo is very, very different compared to the previous 4 logos of the base game of Guild Wars 2 of Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, and End of Dragons, where the other dragons were all incorporated into the logo. They were like the primary element of like being like the 2 in the logo with like the base logo and all that stuff, you know, with all the other logos. But now that the Dragon Cycle is over, and now that we are moving on to new stories, we've kind of stripped away that like dragon idea of the story, and instead of that, we now have this brand new logo that really focuses on the Wizard's Tower, which is probably going to be like the primary focus of the expansion of like the Wizard's Court fighting back against the demons, and they're headquartered in the Wizard's Tower. And I think that's really cool, and it definitely is like a little sad to see that like this Dragon Cycle is definitely over, but I think moving forward it is a really smart decision. And then stylistically, artistically, I really, really like this logo, and I'm really excited for future expansions, how they are going to take like the Guild Wars 2 logo and really change it in a way that is incredibly unique to that expansion, and no longer just like a giant dragon that is like the main part of the logo. And then here we have who I believe is going to be like the main villain of the expansion, and this is like a big demon person that reminds me a little bit of Demos, but with like extra spikes, and I think that's really, really cool. I'm so excited for like a demon storyline in Guild Wars 2. Like Demos is like my favorite boss in all of Guild Wars 2. I just love that storyline so much, and I'm so excited to be able to experience more demon stuff. And like this shot right here is definitely really, really cool. But I think it's a little bit interesting that I immediately jumped the ship to assuming that this is like the main like villain of this expansion. And this could be the main villain of the expansion, but we might have somebody bigger than that is kind of going to be like the biggest villain overarching multiple expansions that might be involving the demons. Or 2, this is just straight up not like the biggest boss of the expansion, and we're going to have to deal with somebody even bigger than this person sooner rather than later. But I believe when we listen to the laugh that's right here that just played, if you go back and watch it, it's a little bit louder at the start of the video, but I believe that laugh is the same exact laugh as the teaser like we got like a few months ago, or however long it's been. My sense of time is weird, but we got a little bit of like a laugh teaser for the upcoming expansion. I believe it's like pretty much the same exact laugh there. And then here we have all of the pricing and stuff for the Guild Wars 2 expansion, but there is one more frame left that we can view, which is going to be really, really interesting to look at, and that is this one right here, where we have a really cool backdrop, and then we have 3 characters in the foreground. So to really quickly go over the characters, in the middle here we have someone who looks like a member of the Wizard's Court. This might be a stand-in for the player character, but this might be like a really important like wizard that we interact with in the expansion. And of course we see that this wizard person here is holding one of the new like masteries, or it's like the, not a mastery, it's like a new mechanic called the Heart of the Obscure, I believe it's called. And then on the left we have a very interesting character that honestly some people might not even recognize if you are more of a casual player, but this looks like Zoja, who we've seen other photos of throughout the expansion art here, who is one of the like main characters of the core release of Guild Wars 2 and of the dungeon storylines, and is the mentor to the Assuran character, like the equivalent of Logan Thackeray for the humans. And she's been gone since 2015 from the Heart of Thorns expansion, when she was in Mordremoth's little pod thingy, and then she was like really debilitated. And now she's randomly showed up here in this expansion, and it looks like she's going to be playing a pretty big part of the expansion too, because we see her all over the place in all the different concept art. And then the third character is a really interesting character on the right side here. And there's been a lot of speculation about what this character is, and I said in my video 2 days ago that this is probably going to be a seer, but I kind of want to put forward 2 lines of thoughts here. So we see this character here who obviously has 4 arms, and I think it could be one of 2 races. So the first one, which I'm a little bit more inclined to think it's going to be this race, is a seer. And not that the seers will necessarily play like a big part in the expansion, but we have like one specific seer that might have joined like the Wizard's Court, or maybe this is even Iskaran or something. But I'm inclined to believe that this is a seer just because of the shape of the body and of the head. But it could be a Jin, which is another very likely candidate, and this could also be Iskaran but as a Jin, which I think would be really cool. But we know Jin are kind of like the primary protectors of the realm of Tyria, where they are like the anti-demons of Tyria, basically, where like their job and their responsibility as part of like the cycle of Tyria is to fight back against any demons. And in an expansion that really focuses on demons, I think it's very likely that we're going to be seeing some Jin, so this could also very likely be a Jin. But I think I'm more inclined to believe it's a seer, but it could also be a Jin, and it's definitely not a Mersat, because Lazarus was the last Mersat and they're dead, and this is obviously not unexalted. But looking at the background, we have a very like interesting kind of like dynamic, where on the left side we have a little bit of like a more peaceful area, and on the right side we have a little bit more of a demonic area. And then really quickly, I'll just point out in the top left, there's 2 Sky Scales here. The Sky Scales are going to be playing a big part of the expansion, and then we have the Wizard's Tower that's also going to be playing a big part of the expansion. And that's everything I'm going to say about that for right now. But the main like focal point right here that we see is kind of like this new realm on the left side that we are going up to, and it's kind of this like nice peaceful, clean, very vibrant area. And then the demons, who is like kind of represented on the right side, is kind of invading this realm and trying to get down into Tyria and basically trying to like corrupt everything or whatever. So I think that's kind of what this whole art thing is representing, is the demons invading the new realm that's in the sky above us. But I think the most interesting thing here is that this kind of really feels like a portal, or kind of like a grand entrance of like a mega demon or whatever, where I guess since Diablo 4 just released, I'm getting a lot of like Diablo vibes of this, where like maybe we'll have like a Diablo or one of the other Lords of Sin kind of like walking through here, but like the Tyria version of it, where maybe the person that we saw earlier, the demon we saw earlier, might actually be like a lieutenant of like a very like dangerous force like walking through here. Or I kind of see like Sargeras from the World of Warcraft universe as well. I kind of see that in like the center of this picture here, and maybe over the next few expansions we're going to have to really deal with like demons, and this might take us to a few different realms, or this might take us to like a brand new continent in Tyria and stuff, and we're really going to focus on like a demon storyline over the next few expansions, where each expansion will definitely be very unique. But I have a feeling there might be like a very big overarching boss that we kind of deal with over multiple expansions. Where like going to World of Warcraft, for example, we dealt with Sargeras indirectly in multiple expansions, because Sargeras is responsible for a lot of stuff in the base World of Warcraft, with like the things that we fought in that expansion, and then in the Burning Crusade and the Wrath of the Lich King, and then I don't think so much in Cataclysm, but in Mist of Pandaria as well, I believe there's like a big focus on Sargeras. And then Warlords of Draenor, not so much, but then going into Legion, of course, that expansion entirely focused around Sargeras. So maybe that might be something that we see in Guild Wars 2, where we're going to have an expansion here that really focuses on like a new big demon villain god emperor of all the different mist realms, and we're going to have to deal with them over the next few expansions, as some expansions might just have a little bit of an impact by this person, and some might have a major impact until we head into a like big expansion that is like a showdown against this big demon god emperor keen person. But I will point out that it kind of looks a little voidy as well on like the outskirts of the portal here, where I'm sure this is kind of just like art for the portal, but it reminds me a little bit of the void from Ender Dragons and kind of that like primal chaotic like ancient magics of the universe that Terria resides in. This is the last frame of the trailer, and that's pretty much everything that we have to talk about in this trailer. But really quickly, I just want to go ahead and go to the website really quickly, where here is the release website that you can find down in the description. And just to go through it really quickly, we kind of see like a mirrored image of what we were just looking at, and then we have demons. And then if no one's looked at these photos or no one's watched my other video, you can kind of see all these different photos here. But we can see like a portal right here that is very similar to the portal that we saw inside of the Wizard's Tower. But then we have these demonic portals here, and then we have like probably a player using stuff from the Wizard's Court, or maybe like a wizard of the Wizard's Court. And then of course we have Zoja, very cool. Skyscale is very cool, and then all this other stuff. But coming down into these screenshots, I really want to go through a couple of these screenshots and wallpapers, because if we come here, we can kind of see like another one of those portal things, where I think this is going to be one of the zones in the expansion, and then we will go from the Wizard's Tower through the portal into where we see like the map portal right here in front of like this bigger portal for like mechanical reasons. But it will be popped out from the Wizard's Tower into the zone, and then it will go start doing things like that. But here is what I believe is going to be like the Wizard's Tower, like teleported up, way up in the sky. And I really want to point out the center of the Wizard's Tower here, where this kind of looks like a little bit like a sword type of thing. It kind of reminds me of like an angelic type of sword. And if we come forward right here, we have what looks like Balthazar's sword, and we see kind of like Amnoon and the Forged and stuff like that. And what this is representing is it's kind of representing that in like the plane of existence that like exists like right below the atmosphere of Terria, we have a representation of Terria itself. And what this is representing is really, we can see in the top right there, we can see like Kaining or Saitong, stuff like that, Saitong. But here we have Balthazar's sword and the Forged, and then like Elonian architecture, and it's just representing in like a very distorted way those planes of existence or areas of the world that we know really well. But I really want to like kind of think about this sword right here that we see with Balthazar's sword, which is really interesting. This probably means nothing, but it's a really interesting kind of like polarity or dynamic to this like angel looking sword here, and then this very like demonic looking sword. Because if you think about it, Balthazar is a demon, because demons are kind of just like creatures from like other realms in Terria, where like any demons that we fight in this expansion, they view us as demons because we're not from their realm type of thing. And I think that's kind of just an interesting way to look at things. But that's pretty much like the primary screenshot that I kind of want to look at. We can see all the concept art and wallpaper right here, and I just want to reiterate that I am super excited for demon stuff moving forward. But this is a little bit of a gross image for some people, but I just absolutely love this concept art right here. And if this is the vibe kind of going into the expansion, of course it's probably not going to be as grotesque as this, because we know Guild Wars 2's art style. But if it's like similar to this, I'm super excited. And I think a really funny thing about this expansion, and this is not criticism, but this kind of feels in a way like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I hope I don't get demonetized for saying that, combined with Diablo 4 and a Guild Wars 2 expansion. And I think the vibes of those two games are really cool, and I think coming into like this expansion, I absolutely love these vibes, and I am super excited to play through it. And I would love to hear what you all have to say about this expansion and what I've kind of said about in this video. I would love to hear speculation, because this entire video is just speculation and kind of guessing what we have coming for us in the new expansion. So go ahead and leave down any thoughts or comments down in the description below, and I hope you all enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.